hence my confidence was severely beaten. I think number one mistake is not committing to learning skills. Everyone has to be realistic. After all, it is the time period of prime youth. After 3 years, it is repetition, it is not transformation. You cannot stake your everything and then be clueless about it if things do not work out. Now what happens is people come to us and say that, how much is the salary, how much salary will I get, etc, etc. Before asking that question, go inwards and think about what value do you bring to the table. Because market pays for value. This salary without value doesn't happen. When I got from Accenture, a huge difference, But I needed a start.
What are the top 3 skills which are needed to get into this?
Look, when it comes to being hired in general, there are certain things which are like absolute must.
How do you look at the domain of public policy consulting?
Yeah, there is absolutely no question of demand getting reduced.
So we have guided over 5,000 candidates. What do you think are the 3 major challenges people face?
You have to be aware of your realities. You have to sell yourself. Sell is a very abused term in India, but that is the truth. If you do not have a good CV, or if you are not willing to spend time and effort in building your CV, you're not going anywhere. When you're preparing your CV, after you are done with the job, put yourself in the shoes of the employer and review your CV. You will yourself have a lot of answers. Have you done it?
Alright, that certainly sounds interesting. And so you transition from your UPSC preparation to your role at Pratham. And at Rebounds also we have guided over 5,000 candidates in transitioning into this. What do you think are the 3 major challenges people face in transitioning from UPSC preparation to their first job within public policy or any other domain?
Maybe let's not restrict it to 3. Let's just talk about challenges in general. I think number one challenge is mentally preparing yourself for the market, not reverting back to the same life again and again. People don't put boundaries. Because you don't put boundaries, you end up not committing yourself to a particular thing which you want to do post UPSC or any other competitive examination. So one of the things which I strongly advise people is commit yourself and have conviction. Then only it will work out. On the side, it would seldom work out. It won't in a lot of cases. That's point number 1.
Okay.
Point number 2 is once you have committed yourself, then do some assessment. Where do you stand and what ground do you have to cover to reach there. Believing that you can do that. Now what happens is people come to us and say that, how much is the salary, how much salary will I get, etc, etc. Before asking that question, go inwards and think about what value do you bring to the table. Because market pays for value. This salary without value doesn't happen.
Right? Absolutely.
So for example, if you want to get into Pratham in an M&E role, right? Now there are certain, or in a policy role in general, there are certain skills which are like absolute must. Some people will have, let's say 10% of it. Some people will have 50% of it. Some people will have more of it, right? That's an assessment you have to do. You being a UPSC aspirant, you carry certain advantages. As I had, I knew education. I knew what is happening in the education sector in general. And otherwise also, like I said, I knew India, better than anyone else. But that's the only thing, I carry that edge in terms of my thinking, in terms of how I approach certain challenges and problems in the development of policy space, which might come to me in future, right? But that's about it. Rest, you have to build certain fundamental skills. For example, if I talk about policy, there are 3 things, which works in policy space. Fundamental. Beyond that, you have to build on top of these. First is good with data. Basic. I'm not talking about high level data science, econometry, etc. Just understanding of how do you deal with numbers, make sense of it. That's point number 1. Point number 2, because it is public and policy, you should know how to talk to people either at the higher level, bureaucrats or politicians or whatever, or down below, people who are beneficiaries and derive insights.
Okay.
And there are various techniques, tools to do that. I won't go into those. But simple things. Let's keep it simple. 1, you should know how to work with quantitative data. You should know how to work with qualitative data or people-driven insights. And 3rd, you should know how to read the literature. Which essentially means you should know what has been done in the area which you are working with in the past. 3 things if you know, so your base is settled. Now, once this base is settled, one of the things which I see people not able to do it, it won't be a very high number if I quoted, let's say 95% of people are not able to present this well for the market. Now, a God is not sitting in the market where you don't say things and you don't write things and people will just understand it. You have to sell yourself. Sell is a very abused term in India, but that is the truth. It starts with your CV. If you do not have a good CV, or if you are not willing to spend time and effort in building your CV, you're not going anywhere. That is the basic. And I find this lacking in 95% of the people. Even with people in Rebounds, despite us guiding people so many times, it is a struggle to come up with a good CV for reasons I really don't understand. So if you have those fundamentals covered, if you have a good CV where you reflect these fundamentals along with some credible evidences of these fundamentals, whatever degree, whatever certificates you acquire in this day and age, not talking about 15 years back when I came out of college, but in this day and age everyone has these. You have to differentiate yourself in the market. That happens when you are carrying credible evidences of the skills you carry. What are these credible evidences? Very simple thing, do a project, do a paper, do a small internship, showcase to the market that you are in it for the long term. Differentiate yourself from others. That's it. And it is doable. It's not like, you are starting from zero, so you cannot do it. Many people have, done it. We have helped a lot of people to sort of bridge that gap. It is doable, but it starts with having conviction and committing to this journey. If you have conviction, you commit, doable, you can do it, build those basic skills, build those credible evidences, have a good CV, go to the market. People are willing to hear you and appreciate you. That is where it starts.
So basically, fundamentally, three challenges are: candidates are not able to, do not have enough substance, are not able to talk about it in a compelling manner in their resume, or they are not able to differentiate themselves from others via credibility.
Of course. You might not be in the competitive examination, but roles in the market are also competitive. The levels are very low. There are many, many roles available, but still you won't be the only applicant, right? So it's like for UPSC, you get one shot 1 year. In market, you get thousands of shots round the year.
All right. And based on your experience of guiding so many candidates at Rebounds, what do you think are the 3 mistakes which candidates make in this transition from UPSC journey to a role in public policy?
I think number one mistake is not committing to learning skills. Number two mistake is not learning how to present themselves well in the market, be it on CV or while speaking in interviews. What I see typically, people with UPSC background might not hold for all, but definitely holds for many, is because you are low on confidence. You just put your, tools down and say that, just take me in. I'm good. That's it. You tell me what I need to learn and I will learn. That's it. It doesn't work like that. You have to present yourselves, make a case for yourself, then only people take you in. So if you do these things well, of course, learn fundamental skills, have credible evidences on your CV and prepare your CV well. And third is, like I said, learn how to sell yourselves in the market, which very, very few people are able to do that. You will be in.
Okay. All right.
And that's my guarantee. I've seen market enough to know this.
Absolutely. There is no doubt in that. One more thing. When we interact with a lot of candidates, many a time they feel that maybe salary in this role is less, I will not be able to apply, etc. You worked with Accenture and its business consulting wing. Then after that, you joined Pratham. So I'm sure there must be a significant salary.
Of course.
So how you convince yourself for this? What was your thought process behind this?
Salary is something. Of course, it is important. No doubt about it. We work for money, right? But you also have to understand where are you coming from. For example, me, right, like you rightly mentioned, when I got from Accenture, which is like the high of it, to Pratham, to the low of it, in terms of salary, not in terms of work. It was huge difference, Maybe I ended up taking a 50% cut or something like that. It might be more. But I needed a start, right? At that point of time, maybe Accenture would not have been ready to take me in again, right? Or my priorities changed, right? But I got a start, right? And once you get a start, you can build on top of that. And after Pratham, PwC happened. It might not have happened if I would have just waited for that one right break, right? Because I just wanted my salary at Accenture to be matched in the market, then only I get into the market. It doesn't work like that, right? You have to be aware of your realities. As I said, salary is proportional to the value you add. So again, going back to my saying, you have to be truthful to yourself. If you think you are adding value and being very realistic, then you will get a salary sooner or later. But if you're not adding value at that point of time, go to a role, learn, add more value, and market will reward you. There is no question about it. There is still dearth of good talent in the market, but market will only reward you when you add value, be it for profit, be it not for profit. Especially in policy or development roles, there is a bit of a gestation period, It might be 1 year or 2 years where you have to develop your profile, learn, upscale, learn to add value. Once you are beyond that, I've seen myself in my career is a good example of it. Also, many people with we have helped at rebounds, it just shoots up.
Right. Absolutely.
But you have to be patient about it. If you come with that mindset that you are prepared for UPSC for 3 years, you are the best talent despite you not qualifying the examination, so you deserve the best money in the market, that might not happen. Also, things change very quickly. You won't even realize. So you should not associate your worth with the money you earn in your first role. Initially, focus should be on learning, growing, developing. Focus should be on learning. Earning is important. I'm not saying work for free. Never. I am absolutely against it. Be it internship or full-time role, you should never work for free. If the other person is working from your, like earning from your work, you deserve money, right?
Absolutely.
But it should not be like you leave opportunities out there because they do not match to your standards or whatever you have set for yourself. Then it will be a problem. Your entry will be delayed, and of course those future salary hikes which you will receive would be delayed. But all said and done, if you are good, your salary hike might be up to 50%, 60% in 1 year. Consecutively, year after year, I have experienced it. So I'm saying it. Not just at non-profit, for profit also. People value you. If you bring value, people will compensate.
All right, that's perfect. And in fact, your career is a classic example.
Yeah, of course. Of course.
So talking about it, so within a 1 year only of joining Pratham, you got into PwC, which is one of the biggest or global public policy consulting firms in India. I'm sure, as you talked about, you also got a very good salary hike in this time.
Yeah, there is no doubt
Right?
about it.
So can you, for our viewers, can you tell what is the typical kind of work which is done as part of these public policy consulting firms in India?
So first of all, it is consulting, right? You're consulting players in the or non-profit space, right? For example, I consulted a lot of government or multilaterals, so to say.
Okay.
Right? When it comes to government, yes, I consulted a lot of governments in India. When I say a lot of government, it's like central government or state governments. I have also consulted governments outside India in the broader South Asian region or African region. Projects might be of multiple types, right? For example, in one of the projects, I was working on developing a methodology to estimate GDP, right? Everyone knows GDP, gross domestic product, Government of India publishes every quarter, but at the city level.
Ah, that sounds interesting.
It was a very interesting project. In another work, I was managing a partnership between Government of India and Government of UK. I won't go into details of it, but yeah, you will get a lot of exposure. You will be sitting in rooms where you will have the highest levels of the bureaucracy and politicians sitting with you, right? Maybe at the central level, at the state level. Same goes with when you're working with governments or multilaterals outside India. You're sitting with really high-level people who are there to hear you, listen your views, listen your thoughts, listen to the analysis you have done, question you, but it's just a different type of experience. The exposure which you get is just at another level, right? So that is how it works. You typically take a project, so to say, which these agencies float, and you deliver those. Of course, in coordination with stakeholders, whether it is at the central government level, state government level, or with multilaterals and stuff like that. Sometimes it would be the three working together: government, multilaterals, and the consulting agency.
All right.
But all said and done, and this is what I always say, the kind of learnings you have in consulting, it's like 2x or maybe 3x of what you might have in a non-consulting role.
And why it is so?
Because it's a project-based role. Every project is unique. Every problem statement is unique. Sometimes the clients are easygoing, other times they are difficult. It's a time-bound work, time-bound delivery, and you just get so much of exposure which you typically do not get in any other role. But having said that, it doesn't mean everyone should pursue consulting. As with civil services, consulting has its own attributes. Some of it might work for some people, others might not work. So know more about it and then decide. But still, if you are undecided, you can get into it, experience yourselves, and then if it doesn't work out, you can also get out.
All right. And what you talked about in terms of the learning opportunities, I completely agree with you. In fact, in political consulting also, in 5 years, maybe you are going to strategize for 5 elections.
Of course.
So if you are working in-house for any one specific party, maybe in 5 years, you will work on 1 or 2 elections. But here it is 5 elections. So obviously the learning is at least 2x or 3x, 4x.
It is the same, any type of consulting, be it business consulting, public policy, political consulting, or whatever, But still, having said that, I just want to caution that doesn't mean consulting is the ultimate career option, because there are certain aspects of the consulting which might not work for certain people.
All right. Since you have talked about it twice, let's hear about it more. So what are maybe the good things and not so good things of working in a consulting firm?
Look, categorizing them into good or bad might not be the right thing. All I can say is the nature of role is a bit different from maybe other roles, right? Consulting is typically project driven. There are roles where you have visibility and certainty that, you know, the next day you would do this, the next week you would do this, the next month you would do this, and month on month in this year you would do this. Consulting is one role where the certainty is less, right? There would be days where you are working and working and working because there is a deliverable which is scheduled to go tomorrow, right? There have been days, and I'm not lying when I'm saying this, in those days, you know, back in 2017, 18, work from home culture was not that much as it is post-COVID, right? I used to be in office, you know, getting out maybe 2 a.m. in the morning, but sometimes the entire night would go in the office, you submit the deliverable and then you get out of it. Used to a lot of travel, right? Consulting cannot happen sitting in office or at home. You travel at client locations and sometimes you might have to even relocate, you know. For one of the engagements, I relocated with family when I was just married. Right? For some people it might work, for other people it might not. So these are the things that I'm talking about when I say some people it might work, other people it might not. All said and done, I enjoyed it. I enjoyed the spontaneity of it. I enjoyed the energy of it. And I enjoyed the fact that, you know, I could get a sense of achievement after delivering a project.
All right, that sounds interesting. And with the penetration of AI, technology, and data, how do you look at the domain of public policy consulting in India? Will it maybe grow further, reduce the demand, or will it stay the same?
Yeah, there is absolutely no question of demand getting reduced. It will grow leaps and bounds in coming years. Think about it. You know, if you don't believe me, think about what is happening to public policy roles in other developed economies. We are on a path, right? We are on a journey. India is on a journey, and at some point of time, we'll be there, right?
Right.
Many government functions need expertise outside their core area, you know. A lot of times, in fact, almost all times, you know, bureaucrat might be the face, the brains might be someone else, right? Same is happening with political consulting, you know. The politician might be the face, the brain is a political consultant.
Absolutely.
Same in the policy space, you know. A lot of times there are policies, but they are sort of the brains behind those, both in terms of, you know, research, implementation, evaluation is all, you know, expertise, external expertise in the market. Also, public policy is about solving public problems. We have come a long way since independence, no doubt about it. But there are still a lot of problems to be solved in India. So there is no question of demand for policy professionals going down. It will go up in leaps and bounds. The nature of role might change. Of course, as with any role, it would evolve over a period of time. And that's what people who want to make a career in the policy space have to be very open and agile about. But there is no question of this field in terms of its, you know, future prospects being very, very dominant or going down. No, that won't happen.
Okay, and how is AI or technology or data expected to affect this domain?
That's a question I get a lot of times. Again, my views on it. Some people might agree, might disagree. I think AI at the end of the day is a machine, is a tool, right? Like maybe a Microsoft Office tool, any other tool for that matter, you know, which helps us sort of draft, visualize, etc. AI is also a tool. AI helps us in becoming more efficient, more quick. For example, when I had to maybe write a piece of code for a particular work, it took me 2 resources, 2 months.
Okay.
Now it will take me 2 weeks, 1 resource. That is the level of efficiency we are talking about. Humans are still important, right? But we are becoming more efficient. So the kind of tasks with efficiency and, you know, quick tasks which I could do 2 years back, that has gone up significantly. So, of course, all of us, irrespective of the field we are working in, should know these tools, right? Should know these techniques, have to be comfortable with it if we have to evolve as professionals. But that doesn't mean we start thinking about doomsday and say that, oh my God, you know, all the roles are going away. Yes, roles will go away, but new roles will come up. Nature of roles will evolve. If you do not evolve yourself, of course, your career will be doomed. There is no doubt about it. Because then machine will take over. But if you evolve yourself, then of course, you know, multiple other roles will open up. And this is a journey, you know, every career goes through a journey. Careers are never the same over a period of 30, 40 years, right? So people have to evolve, upskill, and they will be up for it. In fact, I really look forward to a lot of possibilities AI opens up in the policy space, you know. I'm very, very passionate about it. I'm very, very excited about it, right? All the policy related problems and challenges which India is dealing with at the moment, be it in the area of health, education, urbanization, you know, pollution. I stay in Gurgaon, you stay in Delhi. It's a big problem, right?
Right.
I'm hoping, you know, technology and AI at some point of time would contribute, if not sort of solve it, right?
In fact, with the penetration of AI, we are also observing a lot of new roles coming in. As an example, tech policy. That is a role which
Yeah,
has
of course.
evolved with time. If you talk about today, yesterday only, I was going through an advertisement, Meta was hiring. Zomato is hiring public policy professionals. So, with time, because they also have to comply with the complicated policies of the government. Nowadays, we have a lot of regulations around data. That's why a lot of rules related to compliance with the data rules.
Yeah, of course. I agree with that.
So, in fact, I believe that maybe the type of roles will also diversify and many new roles will also come up. If you talk about the today's demand, we see exponential rise of roles in ESG,
Absolutely. ESG is one area,
right? So, these are the things which are evolving with time. All right. So, Akshat, you worked as the manager at PwC, where I'm sure you would have hired a lot of candidates in this top public policy consulting firm. What are the top 3 skills which are needed to get into these roles?
Again, this number 3, Jigyasu. Okay.
Because I am also a consultant, I also think in numbers.
Yeah, of course. So let me think about it. Look, when it comes to being hired in general, forget about PwC and other things. There are certain things which are like absolute must and which is sort of lacking in lots and lots of people, which is the fit part of it. You have to be convinced, first of all, yourself that this role belongs to you. There has to be a reason you're going for it, right? Whatever it is. And then you have to convince to the employer that, you are fit for this role for so and so reasons. It cannot be just that you have given UPSC. It cannot be just that you come from a particular academic background. The reasons have to be more evolved. Okay. This is where people struggle, especially in the policy space. They just fail to, articulate that they are fit for the role. That's point number 1. Fit is tested via various type of questions. Introduce yourself. Why do you want to go for this role? Why do you think you are a fit for this role? What do you want to do in future? What are your career aspirations? This and that. If there is a misalignment between what they say, what the role demands, you are out. That means you have not done your homework. You really don't know why do you want to go for it. That's point number 1. Point number 2 is the technical aspects of it. Of course, For example, if you're getting into consulting, you have to be a good problem solver. It is tested by various means. It might be cases, it might be guesstimates, it might be other things. If you have not practiced for it, you're out. These are just ways via which people test your problem solving skills. Third is other basic competencies, right? Any role demands certain basic competencies. You should know them well. When questions are asked, you have to respond to those, right? And lastly, it is about knowing the role well, right? Doing your own research, reading through the JD, and understanding various keywords, etc., which are mentioned in the JD, and establishing connections with your profile.
All right.
I would say most of the times it is at stage 1, the fit part, many people fail. So if the fit is clear and you practice the rest of the stuff, have good command over certain fundamental skills you need, you will be. I'm talking about public policy, especially where fit plays a very important role.
So, Akshat, for an ex-UPSC aspirant who is watching this video and maybe aspiring to get into a top public policy consulting firm like PwC, can you tell what are the exact steps to get into that role?
I would say, like what I said before, I might have to repeat the same thing. Policy consulting is also a diverse field, so to say, right? For example, I was part of economic and policy advisory, right? There are other teams, right? For example, people might be focusing upon advisory in the energy space. People might be focusing on advisory in the education space. People might be focusing on advisory in the health space. People might be focusing on advisory even in the sports, right? Which is a new and upcoming area, and various other areas, right? Agriculture, sanitation, this and that, right? Because these are areas where there are a lot of policy related issues, problems, and people need expertise, right? And being a consultant, there are a couple of things which you absolutely need if you want to get into consulting. One is, of course, good communication. Second is problem solving skills, which as I said, is tested via various things. And third is subject matter expertise. Ultimately, that is what you are offering to the clients, right?
Right.
So, same with policy space, right? I had, let's say, my subject matter expertise in all things economics and policy because I come from a particular background, right? If you are, let's say, interested in the education side of things, health side of things, energy side of things, ESG side of things, like you said, etc., etc. So your CV should contain those markers, right? So I typically tell people there are 2 types you can prepare your CV in the policy space. One is around a particular sector or area, like the ones I mentioned,
Right.
health, education, economics,
ESG and
ESG, energy, sustainability, urban livelihood, whatever, right? Second is you can develop your profile on the technical side of things, right? You might say that look, you are absolutely champ when it comes to qualitative methods,
understood.
absolute champ when it comes to quantitative methods, or various other related things, right? So, and that's how you have to present yourselves in the market. And rest of the process is the same. You prepare a CV, do a good job at it. Also, I want like to say over here, when you're preparing your CV, after you are done with the job, put yourself in the shoes of the employer and review your CV. You will yourself have a lot of answers. Have you done a good job or not? So if you put yourself in the shoes of the employer and see that, look, your CV looks fine for the role, that means it is fine and your chance of shortlist would be like really, really high. Once that is done, if you have good communication skills, good problem solving abilities, sectoral knowledge, etc., I would warn people that don't just plan to get into consulting when you are starting your career.
Okay.
Yes, you might aspire for consulting. That's a good thing to aspire for. But don't think that you will only get into consulting and not other roles. It should be like a baby step approach. Whenever you come across a consulting role, apply. Sometimes it would work, other times it might not. But at the same time, also apply to roles which are aligned to the consulting roles. As I said, consultants also have to bring expertise to the table. Now, if you're not getting into consulting as a start, or maybe as an early career professional, focus on developing that expertise, which would be valued in future as a consultant.
All right.
So take baby steps. Do not put artificial blockers. If not consulting, you are interested in education, get into an education aligned role. Build expertise, build CV, and then keep applying into consulting, right? Market is all about keeping applying.
All right. That sounds interesting. In fact, we in the past supported a lot of candidates at Rebounds. Many of them got into consulting.
Yeah, of
To talk
course,
about Impact Consulting, we have candidates working with Satwa, with Primus Partners, recently Embiome Consulting, and many others.
Of course.
But most of these UPSC aspirants we interact with, they have this question, okay, this is the start, I can get into consulting. But can you also give me a picture of how does a typical career in a consulting look like? What is the typical career progression, if there is any such typical per se? So maybe you, being someone who within 5 years only rose from a consultant to a manager position, how does a typical career progression in public policy consulting look like?
Okay. Career progressions are almost the same everywhere. It's like you get in, you work at that level for maybe 2 years, 3 years, whatever. Hit the KPI, so to say, for that level, and display in your work that you are ready for the next. That's when you get promoted. You take additional responsibilities, and then you work at that level for 2 years, 3 years, whatever. You become good at that, and then you are promoted to the next level with more responsibilities, maybe managing projects end to end. At some point of time, you get people management responsibilities as well. That is how it works everywhere, consulting, non-consulting. The difference over here is, in a consulting space, after a point in time, your career is driven by numbers. This is what very few people talk about, because consulting is a for-profit space, right?
Right.
You make money for the firm, you get promoted. You make money for yourself. It is like that, right?
Okay.
For example, if you reach a level of manager, your performance will be less driven by how many projects you deliver. It will be more driven by, how much new business you bring to the company or firm. That is what I usually tell people, that this is the differentiator between a consulting, non-consulting role, irrespective of the sector you are in. It is true for policy, it is true for political consulting, it is true for any business consulting, whatever. So if you are someone who derive energy from numbers, who are really driven to showcase numbers to get new business, go for it. If you really don't know, go for it, figure it out. But at other places, you get promoted, you take additional responsibilities, delivering projects, managing stakeholders, etc., etc. Typically in consulting, at very early in your career, you get numbers responsibility. You bring in numbers, you grow. I've seen people getting, 2 promotions at the same time because they are that good. So consulting rewards numbers after a point of time.
Okay. All right.
Numbers are important at other places as well, but in consulting, they carry more weightage, more important as compared to other roles. It's a direct KPI. In other roles, it's an indirect KPI.
All right. That's a very clear explanation.
Yeah,
I have never seen anyone talking about it so openly.
People don't know about it. People don't talk about it, but that is the reality.
All right. And again, for someone who is watching this video, they are not aware of. At the end of the day, they see that maybe ठीक है, consulting seems like an exciting career, impact करेंगे, अच्छा काम करेंगे. All that is fine, but what is the money in consulting? So what are the usual salaries which you get as part of a public policy consulting firm? Can you talk a bit about that?
Look, salaries vary a lot. Again, the point which I made and which I will make again, salary is a function of value you bring, right? You might make maybe somewhere, I don't know, entry level salary might be maybe around 9 or 10, maybe slightly low depending upon role, company, etc. To maybe, I don't know, 17, 18, 19, 20, depending upon your pedigree, the kind of value you bring to the table. So it is a big range, Jigyasu, to be honest, right?
Okay.
In general, in consulting, the salary scales are slightly higher than other roles, right? But it varies a lot, Maybe you land into top 3 consulting companies, you might end up making more money than maybe a big 4, and slightly boutique consulting companies might pay you slightly lower. But I don't think a salary is something people should be really fixated about, as I said at the start of their career. You will make money. Money follows value. Value cannot follow money. You will make good money to lead a decent life. That's for sure.
Okay.
Then there is absolutely no doubt about it. Beyond that, it is up to you how much do you make, depending upon how good you are.
All right. Yes, that makes sense. As again, in your role as a manager at PwC, I'm sure you must have hired a lot of candidates. How are the gap years treated as part of the public policy consulting firm selection process?
And I think this is what I want to tell to our viewers, like once and for all. It's all right to have gap years. It's all right, In the market these days, forget about 20 years back, people can have gaps for various reasons. You might be on a sabbatical, you might be doing various other things, decided to get out of the market and then get in. So you don't have to be overly worried about it. What I repeatedly ask people is, what I repeatedly expect people to do is, own your gap years. Never be very underconfident about it. Those were conscious decisions you took, as part of your career. So own those up, If you say that, look, those were mistakes, you feel very underconfident about it, try to hide them, no one is going to be hiring you, right? You have to be very confident about it. And I say that emphatically after doing lots and lots of hirings in the market. Gaps are okay up to a certain point, right?
Right.
If you have, let's say, a 10-year of gap, then I would be skeptical about it for obvious reasons, right? I see more of foolishness, so to say, and less of plan when it comes to a 10-year gap. So you will face challenges and you have to justify it, but still doable. I'm not saying that, you have reached a point where you cannot come back. No. But let's say 3 years, 4 years, it's okay. You don't have to be overly fixated about it. Own those. Say very clearly that you wanted to do something in life. You were looking into this. That didn't work out. Now you're looking for opportunities in the market. That's about it. And trust me, when I do a lot of hirings also, in the past also, what matters is there is a job description and there is a CV. How much of your profile is up to this job description? Certain things you would know, certain things you would display attitudes that you can learn. If that is there, go hell with the gap years. It really doesn't matter. And I'm being very honest and open. People might agree, disagree. It really doesn't matter. Going by my extensive experience of doing a lot of hirings, also talking to a lot of people, my circle, I won't be really concerned if you have done various things in 3-4 years. That's okay. But of course, if it is 7, 8, 9, you will face challenge. That is also a reality. I won't deny. But still doable by right strategies, etc., by right commitment, building on your profile, still doable. And people at Rebounds have done it. We have helped a lot of people after 8 or 9 years of gap
Absolutely.
to find roles in the market.
No doubt.
So whatever has happened has happened. Now that when I say 4 years is okay, but 8 years is not, that doesn't mean you become overly worried about it. What has happened has happened. You cannot do a time travel, go back and paper over those. Right? All you have to think about is what next in terms of strategy. And it is doable. We both have helped a lot of people do this. You can also do it. But all said and done, be confident, less worried. Think about what next. If there is a job description, you satisfy it, you will smash it.
Absolutely.
That's it.
So basically, it's not just about having those gap years. It's about what you did in this time.
Yeah, you have
how you talk about it.
Correct. You have to talk positively about it. Say that, it has been some journey. You learned a lot.
What
And-
learnings you have out?
Correct. And establish connections, right?
Right.
That this is what happened and this is what might be useful in the next role which I'm going to be getting into. This connection part is missing in a lot of people. And connections is what employers won't establish on their own. You know, when you just say that you prepare for UPSC, that doesn't mean anything on a standalone basis. You have to establish connections, and you know that also shows your smartness. You're smart about it. You have to say that, look, this role I'm interested in because this is what I did in the last 3 years. This is what I came across. This is what I learned, and I really feel that it puts me in a good space when it comes to this role. So you have to establish connections. That is on you, not on the employer, and that is what we teach people. That is what we help people understand. That if you establish connections, be confident about it, game done. So 2 things, just to summarize this discussion. One is be confident, it's okay. And second is learn to establish connections. Just saying you are a UPSC aspirant is incomplete. If you understand the role, establish connections, and you will get.
All right. That sounds interesting. And when we talk about these roles, nowadays we have seen rise of fellowships in India or some other roles in PMUs, which are typically a limited duration role of 1 year, 2 year, 3 year. When we interact with candidates, a lot of candidates from rebounds got into those state government fellowships. Many of them offer even, salaries of more than 1 lakh rupees, right? Some are full-time, part-time, whatever it is. Now, when we interact with the candidates, in general, people are skeptical to take those fellowships because they feel that there is a deadline. This is a 1 year role. What will I do after that? Instead of this, maybe I should give one more attempt. So, what is your take on these public policy fellowships in India?
I think they are absolutely brilliant opportunities with lots and lots of scope to learn as well as to earn, right? I don't see any reason to be skeptical about it. Very few people manage to get into some of these prestigious fellowships, and once you get into it, you will have a kind of profile which will command premium in the market. There is no doubt about it. If you just keep looking for those permanent roles which are never permanent, you will miss on these opportunities, right? That is how I see it. Truth be told, outside government, no role is permanent. Some roles, contract so to say, would have an expiry date already written. Other roles won't have an expiry date, but it can expire at any point of time. So market is a game of continuously improving yourself and reaching at a position where people want you in instead of you getting into organizations. That is how I see things. And fellowships are a very, very good opportunity to build your profile, learn, earn, and then, loudly tell to the market that this is what I am, now I be. Have that confidence. Do not be worried about 1 year, 2 year. Many people, in fact, come to us and say that I want a stable career, stable role, because I think most of it is influenced by, again, UPSC or government job aspirations. Trust me, guys, government jobs have come down in the last 5-7 years. They would come down even significantly in the years to come. Government will become a very lean train machinery. A lot of consultants are being hired. The number of consultants which will hired in future will go up. They won't go down. So the sooner you become comfortable with the dynamics of the market, the better it would be. At the start of your career, focus on roles which gives you a lot of learning, be it fellowships, be it YPs, etc. Don't think that 1 year expiry, 2 year expiry, it really doesn't matter. Before the expiry, be confident that you will find another one. Focus on learning. If you learn, market will be willing to have you on board and pay you what you deserve.
All right. That certainly seems fantastic. Now, finally wrapping up our conversation, then you got into senior manager role at Economist Intelligence Unit. Finally, ended up building Rebounds. When you maybe talk about how things were in 2016 when you were transitioning versus how they are in 2026, now we have organizations like Rebounds also which are providing this structured support. How do you see this overall transition space change?
I think it has been a complete overall, Jigyasu, to be honest. I've seen last 15 years. Like I was saying, when I came out of this cycle, I didn't have people to talk to. I was not confident. I didn't know what to do, who to talk to, who would hear me out, who would empathize with me, right? Who would be ready to hear me, give me a pathway or a track which I can follow, who can put a hand on my shoulder and say that it's all right, I will help you out and you're meant for bigger things. There was none, absolutely none. A, of course, you yourselves are hesitant to reach out to people.
Absolutely.
And B, you really find, it's a struggle to find people who can empathize with you, do not judge you, and show you a path in terms of what can be done next. And I really feel, especially people who come from UPSC background, they need that confidence, they need someone to say them that, look, boss, you can do it. It's okay if you couldn't qualify one examination. One examination is not the entire life. It doesn't define you, right? It's just a blip in your journey, right? I don't think from an attitude perspective as well, people were very sensitive about it. Of course, when you are in this entire ecosystem of examinations, everyone needs to know pre hua nahi hua, main hua nahi hua, kahan tak pahunche, that Sharma ji would always come to the house, inquire about your journey when you are preparing for it. Because Sharma ji knows if the boy gets in or the girl gets in, Sharma ji needs to keep the connections on, right? But just in case if you do not end up getting, qualifying the examination, you won't see any Sharma ji, you won't see any Verma ji, you are all alone. Even your parents fail to sort of, understand the predicament you are going through, right? The story is always about one more attempt. People don't understand the reality of it. Now, in this day and age, you have lots of information, right? You do a Google. That point of time when I was out, looking for roles, Plan B was not even a buzzword. I didn't know what Plan B is, right? There was never a Plan A, Plan B, nothing on Google. No one, talked about, okay, I will help you out, come out of the cycle, do other things. There are other career opportunities, etc., etc. There was nothing, zero. Like I said, Plan B, I'm hearing for the last 3 to 4 years only.
Maybe we are the biggest advocates of it.
Yeah, of course. We are the biggest advocates of it, correct? And I'm very proud about it.
Right.
And we both have sort of managed to build an ecosystem and etc., which I don't think existed 15 years back.
Absolutely.
If it would have existed at that point of time, the kind of level I managed to achieve in my career, I would have done it maybe 5 years before, maybe even sooner than that. Who knows, right? It is all about mindset.
Right.
And I think that point of time, there was nothing. You are just on your own. No Sharma ji, no Verma ji, no one understanding what you're going through. People are just ready to mock you, right? So to say, in private circles, they stop talking to you or they stop talking to your parents. And, the way they used to talk to you and your parents, that changes. If you do not qualify the examination, that's a reality. I'm sure many people would identify with it. It's a very difficult thing. But you never had that ecosystem which we have managed to build in the last 3 years. When people reach out to us, we are all ears for them.
Right.
Because we understand their predicament, we understand their situation. They might not agree with everything we say, but we come from a position based on our own experiences, right? You have also been a UPSC aspirant, Gyazu. So we have been through that journey, right?
Absolutely.
We understand what people feel, emotionally. They need a lot of confidence, encouragement, this and that. And we are ready to, get our hands dirty and put in everything into it, right? So that is what lagged at that point of time, and that is what we have managed to build in the last 3 years. I'm very, very proud about it. At least people can look forward to, having something as their backs, just in case, their plan A does not work out, right?
Right.
So yeah, also, that entire Google ChatGPT didn't exist at that point of time. Google was there, but the content related to it was not there. So yeah, it is a complete change, both in terms of people, in terms of content, and rebounds, right?
Right. Undoubtedly. In fact, we at Rebounds organize a lot of free masterclasses,
Of course,
where we typically create awareness about various career options which can be explored. How can you position your gap years in the best possible manner? All these options, all these awareness, all this never existed 3 years or 5 years back.
Absolutely. You are the expert in political consulting. I consider myself as an expert in, public policy.
Undoubtedly.
And I genuinely believe these are two careers which are have natural alignment with all things you aspire for when you want to become a civil servant. I'm not saying that everyone should do public policy, political consulting, but it does have a natural alignment. That is why I came out of UPSC, I ended in public policy. You came out of UPSC, you ended in political consulting, right?
Right.
So yeah, we have built an ecosystem, and to our audience, if you are dealing, going through the same journey, you need people to talk to, you need people who hear you out, give you the right advice. Please feel free to reach out. We are all ears, right?
Right, absolutely. In fact, we have helped a lot of candidates via even our free masterclasses, via our support systems, because as we always say, we have been there, done that. So Rebounds is something which is a product of our journey. It is not a venture which we started maybe per se just to make profit. This is a venture which is born out of the kind of journey and the difficult transition we ourselves had, so that now we are on a mission that you do not have to go through what we went through.
Absolutely. And, whenever people come back to us and say that, oh, they've landed in this role, that role, every single time I feel really proud about it, and it is a personal success for me as well, right?
Right.
I that night, I sleep well, when I realize that one or couple of my students have landed at good roles in the market.
Absolutely. No doubt. So, Akshat, if let's say you were the person who couldn't clear UPSC prelims in 2026, maybe same background, same stuff, what are those things which you will do in the next 90 days?
Okay, I think it's been a long time since I came out of UPSC, not qualify, etc., etc. I think Jigyasu, you are right. You are placed right to answer this question instead of me. Although we have helped a lot of people within rebounds in the past 3.5 years, but I think I would request you to take up this question for our audience, like what people should do or what people should think about or plan their journey after pre 2026.
Okay. All right. So, here my idea is first you have to figure out what you are going to do with respect to your UPSC preparation. So, maybe if you have spent less than 3 attempts, you may plan to give another attempt, and alongside you can upskill yourself so that you are ready if required in the market, right? Because now you have enough time. If you have already given 3 attempts, ideally 2 attempts, but at max 3 is the max, ideally 2. So basically it's like if you have given 2 attempts, then you can, if you want, you can prepare for one more attempt, but ensure that you upskill alongside so that you are ready to take up a job whenever required.
Correct.
If
Of course.
you have given 3 attempts, this is the time when your plan B should become a plan A.
Correct. Absolutely.
So now, be it maybe upskilling or you want to go for master's program, whatever you want to do, try to put that on the front foot. Focus on that, upskill yourself. And here also the strategy should be first you figure out what are those areas you want to get into.
Of course.
Do that market research, understand what is needed in the market, introspect, figure out what is the gap. Usually the gap in the UPSC aspirants is, maybe as you were also mentioning, they do not have, let's say, the market relevant skills, despite of having a lot of knowledge. Maybe those credible signals in their resume. So work on those things, work on upskilling yourself, work on maybe building some projects, etc. So that you have a strong story to tell, you have a strong resume. Then after that, maybe after 2 months, after 60 days, you can start working on your resume and start applying for the roles of your choice.
Of course, I would agree to that. That makes perfect sense to me. So it's like introspect, figure out what you want to do, then work proactively towards it. You commit and be convinced to the fact that things would work and they would work. If you take a systematic process towards it, and once that works, then if you want to give UPSC on the side or do other things, of course you're free to do that.
And just one addition to this here. Let's say if you could go back to maybe 2016, talk to Akshat who just gave his 3rd attempt, could not qualify in the UPSC examination, what advice would you give to him? Let's say if you now go back via time machine to 2016, advise the same Akshat who could not qualify the UPSC examination and is just now figuring out.
Okay.
Don't know.
I think with the benefit of hindsight, I would say my younger self in 2016 that it's all right, champ. It's all right, Yeah, you have a lot of potential. You are good, and there are lots of career opportunities, lots of other things which you can explore, do well, excel, be confident, and go out there in the market with all confidence. And, slowly people will realize what value you carry. And confidence is what I would advise to my younger self if I go back to 2016. I think that's what I lacked. And if I would have been more confident, like I said, I would have been maybe 5 years ahead than what I am at the moment. Not saying that I'm not at a good level or a good position or I'm not happy about it. I am happy, but maybe the journey could have been something else, who knows?
All right. And just for our audience, any final advice which you would like to give to ex-UPSC or UPSC aspirant who's just watching this video?
I would give a bit of a philosophical advice, to be honest. Having been, in this journey for a long time, it's okay if UPSC works out. It's okay if it doesn't work out, At the end of the day, treat it, howsoever difficult it is, treat it as any other role or job, and give it the same respect as you would give it to any other role or job, Aspire high, keep aspiring high. Aspiration should not be limited to just qualifying one examination. You know, this is an India of 2026. We need the youth of this country to aspire really high, dream big things, achieve big things. An examination is not a marker of that.
All right. Thanks a lot, Akshat, for all these insights from all your experience. I am 100% confident that the viewers who are going to watch this video will benefit immensely from it. So thank you
Great.
for
Thank you so
taking
much.
your time and talking about this so honestly and so openly.
Yeah, of course. I had fun, to be honest. So thank you so much, Digyas.
It's my humble request to all our audience who are watching this video. If you like this video, maybe don't just like, but also share it with someone who need to know all these things before they end up wasting their whole 20s preparing for one exam.
Of course.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, guys.